Hello, welcome to the McKinnis Family Workshop. My name is Robert McKinnis. Now, if you've been here on the past few months, you may have met my Aunt Sarah Fischel out here. Now, she helps a lot with the gardening, with cooking, and also with the laundry. Now, she's been out here before, and she noticed that we have a problem in our laundry house. On cold, wet days, kind of like today, there's not enough room inside the building to dry everything. So she asked me to make her a new drying rack that can actually get suspended up into the ceiling so we have more room below to go around and keep doing the laundry. So first part of any project is get an idea. After that is to come up with a plan. So here in my sketchbook here, I made a quick sketch of what we want to do. So pretty much what this is going to look like in the end. It's going to be 2 supporting beams that are going to be holding 5 wooden stays. These stays are what the laundry is going to be hanging across. They will then be pulled up to the ceiling by using ropes and pulleys, and then held there by using a wooden cleat. So here on the farm, what we need to do is we need to make the wooden stays, we need to make the supporting wooden beams, and then we need to make the wooden cleat. We can't make the rope and the pulleys here just because we don't have the capabilities to do it. So today we're actually going to start making the wooden staves. So to do that, we'd have to go out and we'd have to cut down a young sapling. However, the problem with doing that, a lot of times when you cut down a tree that's alive, or green is another way of saying it, that they'll often shrink as moisture from the wood starts to evaporate out. And some species like oak, they can actually shrink to about half the size. In a project like this, that wouldn't be very good. So the best way to do it is to cut down a piece of wood beforehand and then to let it dry for a few years. Luckily we have a little variety of pieces that we did that with up in the rafters of our building. And this morning I came out and I put them all outside here so I can figure out which ones are going to work. Now talking to my father, he said that the beams of the wash house are about 4 feet apart. Factoring in the actual beam sizes themselves, this project needs to be about 4 foot 3 inches long. So I got a piece of rope. I tied one into it so we can figure out roughly how big we need to get our beams. So come over here. I start measuring and I tell that a lot of these are going to be too small over here, just not long enough. This one's about long enough, but it has a curve in it. Keep moving down the line. We got some that are long enough but too thin. So pretty much what I came up with are these 5 beams right here are going to be the best ones to make our wooden staves. So now when we are looking for a piece of wood, we're looking for a few things. One thing is trying to get as straight as we can. The more curves in it, it's just not going to work as well. This one has a little bit of a curve to it. However, it's long enough that we can cut that curve out if we need to. Another thing that we're looking for is having a piece of wood that doesn't have a lot of knots in it. Knots aren't the end of the world. They're just going to make working with it a little bit more difficult. So now that we actually got our wood picked out, we're going to bring it inside and actually start working with them. And we're going to do that by using the shaving horse right here. Now you might ask, why aren't we doing this on the lathe? If we were able to do this on the lathe, it would make it look a little bit nicer and we get more consistent diameters throughout the whole stave. However, our lathe just isn't big enough for the project that we are doing. So we're going to have to do it on the shaving horse. There's nothing wrong with that. You can get it pretty uniformly shaped as well. So again, you haven't seen the shaving horse before. We got our vise head that will clamp down on our working piece. And then we have our draw knives. Now I like to have the draw knives arranged in front of me from the largest and thickest one toward the closest toward the vise head. And then my smaller draw knives and my spoke shaver closer toward me for doing some of the finishing work. So pretty much what we're going to do is we're going to be careful. And we're just going to go down and we're going to remove the bark. Just as we go, we want to keep turning it. And then we'll just keep going, keep pulling it up through the vise. Eventually we will have to flip it 180 degrees to get to the other side of it. We're just going to keep going and removing the bark. Now there's a few things that we need to keep in mind as we're doing this. One is we don't want to take off too much material, because once it's off, we can't go back and add it back on. Another thing is we have to be careful where these knots are at. If we're too aggressive with the knots, we can cause it to blow out and have a big gaping hole in our working piece and just not going to look as nice. We also want to try to make sure that we keep it at a consistent diameter. And we also want to try to get it as smooth as possible. We don't want to have any splinters in there or snags in there that could damage our laundry when it's on there. So we'll just keep going. Be careful, try not to remove too much of the wood. Right now we're really just working on the bark. Yeah, right here we got a big old knot that we'll have to be careful of as we go. But we're just going to keep working on this until we have it just all nice and smooth all the way across. We can then shave off more if needed if later, and we can also trim it down to size later too. However, we'll have to do that later on in the project. So I'm going to keep working on this and making our 5 staves. Hopefully next time you guys come here in 2 weeks, we can move on to the next part of the project.